Heading into this season, there were a lot of teams that were expected to do some pretty great things, but so far they have gotten off to some pretty bad starts, but none worse than the New Jersey Devils, who through 6 games of the year are still winless. They are 0-4-2 and are the only winless team remaining in the NHL. I mean, even the Ottawa Senators have a win, and their win was actually pretty impressive against the Tampa Bay Lightning. And in today's video, I kind of just want to go over everything revolving around the New Jersey Devils so far throughout the season, look back on some of the games that they've played, and just overall talk about what I think has gone wrong with them to start the 2019-20 season and ultimately what they should do to change it. Before I get into looking at stats and going over New Jersey's recent games, I want to look at some of the players that Ray Shero brought in this offseason in order to make this team better, starting off by them lucking out and winning the draft lottery and drafting Jack Hughes #1 overall. Now yes, Jack Hughes hasn't been fantastic to start the season. He remains pointless through 6 games, but I wouldn't look too much into it. Steven Stamkos, after being drafted #1 overall, went pointless through his first 7 games, and now look where he's at. So definitely wouldn't worry about Jack Hughes just yet. They also traded for Nikita Gusev from the Vegas Golden Knights. He was one of the best players in the entire KHL last season, and bringing in a guy of that talent should definitely help your offense. And then also they brought in Wayne Simmonds as an unrestricted free agent. They signed him to a 1-year contract. He's a guy who could bring some grit and some offense. And then the biggest move, in my opinion at least, in terms of blockbuster and notability, they traded for PK Subban at the NHL draft, and they really didn't give away too much to bring him in. It was more so Nashville just wanting to get rid of that contract. And obviously when you bring in a bunch of solid players like that in the summer, and you're adding to an already decent core with players like Nico Hischier, Kyle Palmieri, Taylor Hall, Simi Vatanen, Will Butcher, Jesper Bratt, all those guys, you're going to have some high expectations coming into the season. And we have to remember, in the 2017-18 season, Taylor Hall won the Hart Trophy and led this team to the playoffs. So last year was kind of just a down year for them, and a big reason why was because Taylor Hall was injured for the majority of the season. Last year they were 31, 41, and 10, 8th in the Metro, and then obviously that led to them winning the draft lottery and drafting Jack Hughes #1 overall. And I think that Taylor Hall injury last year and the down year for them was kind of a blessing in disguise, because I feel like they definitely did need another really talented guy, and obviously you lucked out in a big way acquiring Jack Hughes, even though over the first couple of games he doesn't look like a generational talent or even a franchise talent, but it will come. He's been around the net, he's just really snake bitten and hasn't been able to put up numbers, but I thought he hasn't even been playing that bad. And now that we are finished looking at last season, let's jump forward to this year, where, like I showed earlier, they are 0-4-2, 8th in the Metro, and 31st overall in the entire NHL. Technically, they are tied with the Ottawa Senators because they have the same amount of points, but New Jersey hasn't won a game yet. Only 2 of their losses came in extra time, so at least they have 2 points to show for it, and basically that's the only silver lining for them so far throughout the season. Looking at some of their slow starts, obviously, like I mentioned, Jack Hughes in 6 games has 0 points, but it will come. He definitely has been getting the chances, and again, I think his skating has looked very impressive at the NHL level. And then Wayne Simmonds, a guy they brought in on the 1-year contract this summer, only 1 assist in 6 games, and for a guy like Wayne Simmonds, who's kind of like a net front power play specialist, you definitely want him to put up a lot more numbers than that, at least through 6 games of the season. And then Nico Hischier in 6 games only has 2 assists for a total of 2 points. So those are just some of the notable slow starts of the year. PK Subban hasn't been lighting it up at all by any means either, but he is a defenseman, and I guess a new team, you can give him a pass on that for not putting up numbers as a defenseman. But still, those 3 guys on the screen, you're gonna need them to start producing offense if this New Jersey team wants to climb out of the basement and start stringing some wins together. Now let's start to take a look at some of the more advanced stats for the Devils over the first 6 games of the season. They have a league worst -16 goal differential through 6 games of the season. That is absolutely abysmal, and they definitely need to clean that up if they want to have any chance of getting back up even near 500. Blown leads in 3 of their 6 games so far. Obviously their first game of the season against the Winnipeg Jets was a nightmare, and then last night against the Florida Panthers was a nightmare as well. They were up 4-1, and again, just like in that Winnipeg game, they blew it, but instead in the Florida game, they actually didn't even make it to overtime, and they lost 6-4 in regulation time. Their power play percentage is, get this, a 0%. They have yet to score a power play goal through 6 games of the season, and when you consider how many talented guys they can throw it on on the ice for a power play, that is pretty mind-blowing. And they also have a 57.1 penalty kill percentage, that is second worst in the NHL, only behind the Los Angeles Kings. So basically, if you have a power play against the New Jersey Devils, you're scoring about 50% of the time, and that is just yet another stat that New Jersey has to fix if they want to have any chance of saving this season. So now getting into what some of the problems could be, and obviously coming into the year, I'm pretty sure everybody was really skeptical about the goaltending situation, and through the first 6 games of the season, it looks like we had every right to be, and I'm not blaming it all on Blackwood and Schneider because they definitely haven't been getting much support either, but sometimes in these games, man, if New Jersey's goalies could have had a couple of big saves and maybe, stop the flurry of offense, let's say in the Florida game, then maybe things would have turned out different. But Corey Schneider's numbers, 4 games played so far for him, an 0-3 record, 409 goals against, and a 876 save percentage, so definitely not a hot start to the year for Corey Schneider by any means. And it seemed like heading into the year, every time I would say I'm really skeptical about New Jersey's goaltending, and I really didn't think Corey Schneider could be a starting goaltender for a playoff team anymore, New Jersey fans would come at my throat and say, it's okay, we have McKenzie Blackwood, he's more than capable of being a starting goaltender, he's a young up-and-coming guy and should have no problem taking over as the starter from Corey Schneider. But through the first 3 games of the season for Blackwood, he has 0 wins, 1 regulation loss, and 2 overtime losses, a 4.90 goals against, and a 821 save percentage. Now, the save percentage of Schneider and Blackwood is definitely concerning because usually goals against, you can look at that and say, yeah, that's right, but, their defense hasn't been great and they're goaltending for a bad team. But save percentage is usually where you can tell if it's just a good goaltender playing on a bad team, and if they have above like a 9-10 save percentage, then yes, they're a solid goaltender, they're just stuck on a bad team. But through the first couple of games of the season, man, Blackwood and Schneider have gotten off to really bad starts, and it definitely isn't all their fault, but sometimes they have to come up with a big save to really keep this New Jersey team in games. And now jumping into the line combinations for the New Jersey Devils. Now I am using dailyfaceoff.com, so I'm not quite sure if this is accurate, but dailyfaceoff.com does keep up with the lines after every game, and they do their best to keep them all up to date. So hopefully this is correct. If you're a New Jersey fan and these weren't the lines last game, make sure to let me know down in the comment section below. But I'm sure after last game we're gonna see some more shaking up through the lineup. But looking at it, Taylor Hall, Hischier, and Palmieri, that's pretty much what everyone expected to be the number 1 line. I don't have any problem with that. And then the second line, you have Miles Wood with Travis Zajac and Blake Coleman. So you have them ahead of a lot of very talented players that you have stuck in the bottom 6. But Blake Coleman actually has been off to a really good start, and he's been one of the players that at least I've been impressed with so far for the Devils. And I don't really have a problem with them sticking them on the second line, because in the end, that Hughes line and probably even the fourth line will probably get more ice time than them, considering special teams and all that. Third line, Jesper Boqvist, Jack Hughes, and Wayne Simmons. I like the fact that they have Hughes and Simmons together, but Jesper Boqvist is another rookie, and I honestly think they should stick a guy like maybe Miles Wood on that line and try something like that out. But who am I to say? I'm obviously not the coach of the New Jersey Devils. And then on that fourth line, they have Nikita Gusev with Pavel Zacha and Jesper Bratt. Now that is definitely a very skilled fourth line, and I think it's kind of asinine that Jesper Bratt is skating on that fourth line, because he's a guy that I thought, at least coming into this season, would have a breakout year after, well, he was healthy last year, and on the ice he was playing pretty fantastic. Pavel Zacha is a guy who's actually kind of been a silver lining for them so far this season. Ever since being drafted, they've been waiting for him to have that breakout offensive year, and so far he's been one of the point leaders for this Devils team through the first 6 games. So all in all, it's kind of in shambles, these lines, and I definitely don't like the look of them, and I guess that kind of falls on John Hines, and a lot of people are calling for his head and saying he should be fired. And honestly, at this point, something has to give, something has to change, and maybe it is a coaching change. Now looking at their D pairings and goaltending, you have PK Subban with Damon Severson, Will Butcher with Sammy Vatanen, and Matt Tennyson with Connor Carrick. And then obviously in goal you have Corey Schneider and McKenzie Blackwood. Not too much to say on their D pairings, and I don't really think changing up D pairings is going to do too much in terms of leading them to victories. But all in all, looking at all the talent that they have on this team and looking at their line combinations in terms of forwards and defensemen, this is a team that should not be winless through the first 6 games of the season, even if their goaltending is shaky. So that basically wraps up today's video of me just kind of going over New Jersey's season so far and trying to really pinpoint what is wrong with this team. In the end, I'm honestly kind of on the bandwagon of firing John Hines. Even though I don't think he's an awful NHL coach, I just think something needs to change with this New Jersey team, and we saw what a coaching change could do for a team like the St. Louis Blues in this past season. So maybe he is the scapegoat for this team, but something has to change. This team is way too talented and has too many good players to be winless through 6 games of the season, and obviously this isn't going to last forever, and teams that get off to a slow start, it's not the end of the world, and it doesn't mean they aren't going to make the playoffs. But if this keeps going on longer and longer, it's just going to continue to get that much harder for this New Jersey Devils team to get anywhere near a playoff spot. So that is going to wrap up today's video. I really hope you guys did enjoy. This isn't a video of me hating on the New Jersey Devils. This is just a hot topic in the NHL, and I really wanted to give you guys my thoughts on it at least and try to figure out what could be wrong with this team. If you guys are a fan of the New Jersey Devils, make sure to let me know down in the comment section below, what do you think needs to change with this New Jersey team for them to start winning games? And even if you're just a fan of the NHL in general, make sure to let me know your thoughts as well. So thank you guys so much for watching today's video. If you did enjoy, make sure to drop a like on it and subscribe to the channel for daily NHL content, and I will see you guys all in the next video.